Malaysia stands as a nation of striking contrasts. Home to 33 million people, it features a 61% Muslim Malay majority, 23% ethnic Chinese, 7% Indians, and 12% indigenous groups from Borneo and beyond. This federation blends secular governance with Islam as the official religion, fostering an economy valued at $422 billion in 2025. Yet beneath the surface, racial frictions persist. Conservative Islamic influences grow, and the new economic policy, Malaysia's Affirmative Action Framework, delivers both progress and pitfalls. This video essay examines these dynamics with unfiltered clarity, grounded in reports, data, and historical context. It highlights how affirmative action has uplifted the majority while entrenching divisions, a model distinct yet not entirely unique globally. Racial tensions in Malaysia trace back to colonial divides that pitted resource-rich Chinese and Indian communities against land-based Malays. The 1969 riots, which killed hundreds, prompted the new economic policy NEP in 1971 to address these imbalances through affirmative action for Malays and indigenous peoples. Today, these tensions manifest in everyday and institutional forms. The Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission removed over 11,000 pieces of online content in 2025 alone for inciting ethnic, religious, or royal discord. Human Rights Watch's 2025 report documents state-backed discrimination, including conversion therapies for LGBT individuals and biases in hiring and policing that disproportionately affect minorities. The Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, SUHAKAM, released a May 2025 study revealing entrenched racism in education, employment, and social interactions, urging comprehensive reforms to rebuild unity. An academic analysis ties these patterns to partisan politics, where ethnic mobilization sustains divisions rather than resolving them. Online forums like Reddit echo these realities, with expatriates and locals sharing accounts of prejudice in housing, jobs, and social settings, underscoring how race shapes opportunities from cradle to career. Online news portal freemalaysiatoday.com captured this in June 2025, describing how ordinary citizens perpetuate tribal suspicions, scripting lives along ethnic lines. While not erupting into widespread violence, these frictions represent a chronic strain on Malaysia's multicultural fabric. Parallel to racial divides runs a surge in Islamic conservatism, driven by the Muslim majority's push for greater religious integration. A 2023 Pew Research Center survey found 86% of Malaysian Muslims support implementing Sharia as official law, a sentiment fueling the green wave of Islamist Party, which now controls key northern states and eyes further expansion. In September 2025, the Islamic Party Annual Congress amplified calls for stricter moral codes, clashing with the Prime Minister Anwar's inclusive Madani framework, while promising moderation toward non-Muslims. Deutsche Welle reported in July 2025 that youth unemployment has channeled frustrations into religious zeal, bolstering conservative ranks. Concrete measures reflect this momentum. Kelantan's Sharia criminal code faced a February 2025 federal court rejection as unconstitutional. Yet the states continue to challenge the federal court ruling in the name of Islamic law. Airlines have phased out alcohol to align with halal standards, extending religious norms into public commerce. Open Doors' 2025 World Watch List ranks Malaysia 50th for Christian persecution. Spiked magazine described this in September 2025 as an Islamist's paradise, with 39% of Muslims endorsing severe penalties for apostasy. Malaysia's constitution maintains secular oversight for non-Muslims. But these trends erode that balance, prioritizing majority faith over pluralistic ideals. At the heart of these intertwined issues lies the new economic policy. Launched in 1971 to eradicate poverty and restructure society by elevating Bumiputera economic participation, this affirmative action targets the Malay and indigenous majority, who comprise about 70% of the population, but faced colonial-era disadvantages in commerce and education. Unlike typical global models that uplift numerical minorities, Malaysia's approach reverses the script, favoring the political majority to correct historical inequities. The 1971 new economic policy achievements are substantial. Poverty rates among Bumiputera plummeted from 49% in 1972 under 1% by 2020, lifting millions into the middle class through targeted subsidies, scholarships, and quotas. Bumi Putera equity ownership in the corporate sector rose from 2.2% in 1970 to 24% by 2020, fostering a new cadre of Malay entrepreneurs and professionals. University enrollment for Malays surged from negligible levels to over 60% of spots, democratizing higher education and fueling sectors like public administration and agriculture. Overall, the policy contributed to Malaysia's transformation from a low-income agrarian economy to an upper-middle-income exporter, with GDP per capita climbing to $11,900 in 2025. A 2024 Cogitatio Press study credits the NEP with narrowing absolute income gaps, enabling intergenerational mobility for many Bumi Putera families. Early post-independence initiatives like state-backed banks seeded successful Malay businesses despite initial hurdles. Yet these gains come shadowed by profound failures. The NEP has morphed into a vehicle for cronyism, with quotas in contracts and licenses enriching a politically connected elite rather than the broader majority. A 2021 Institute of Southeast Asian Studies report details how rent-seeking behaviors, securing government handouts without innovation, have stifled competitiveness, leaving many Bumi Putera graduates underprepared for global markets. The INS News highlighted in 2021 how the policy fostered dependency, failing to instill critical thinking or entrepreneurial drive, resulting in 2 generations reliant on state crutches. Ethnic income disparities endure. In 2025, median Chinese household income stands at 8,933 Malaysian ringgits monthly, compared to 7,964 Malaysian ringgits for Bumi Putera, a 12% gap that quotas have barely dented. World Inequality Lab data from 2025 shows Bumi Putera dominating the bottom 50% of earners despite their numbers. While Chinese and Indians' ethnic group claim over half of the top 1%, this structure marginalizes non-Bumi Putera, breeding resentment and brain drain among talented Chinese and Indians who feel boxed out of public opportunities. A 2022 Southeast Asian Studies analysis critiques the NEP over-reliance on equity targets, which diverted focus from skills development and perpetuated intra-Bumi Putera divides between rich patrons and poor recipients. Prime Minister Anwar's 2025 reform proposals plan on shifting toward needs-based aid, face backlash from conservatives who view any dilution as betrayal, entrenching the policy's flaws. The East Asia Forum argued in 2018 that the NEP has ultimately failed its core beneficiaries by discouraging meritocracy, while sidelining the nation as a whole in a competitive global economy. Malaysia's model is distinctive but not solitary in benefiting a numerical majority. Globally, affirmative action typically aids disadvantaged minorities, as in the United States for African Americans and Hispanics, or Brazil's quotas for Black and Indigenous students. India's system reserves spots for scheduled castes and tribes, often a numerical majority in states like Rajasthan, where 78% qualify to counter caste-based exclusion. South Africa's Black economic empowerment favors the Black majority, 80% of population, through ownership mandates and procurement preferences, which is quite similar with Malaysia's equity goals. Thomas Sowell's comparative study underscores Malaysia's case as emblematic of how such programs can empower majorities economically while risking ethnic polarization. Unlike minority-centric models, these majority-benefiting systems often amplify political majoritarianism, as seen in Malaysia's Green Wave linking economic grievances to religious demands. These threads converge in Malaysia's prosperity paradox. The 5.2% GDP growth in Q3 2025, driven by semiconductors, electric vehicles, and foreign direct investment, up 47.5%, stems from multi-ethnic collaboration: Chinese in manufacturing, Indians in services, Malays in resources. Malaysia grapples with real challenges: simmering racial animosities, rising religious conservatism, and an affirmative action legacy of triumphs tainted by cronyism and dependency. The NEP's poverty, eradication, and equity gains have empowered a majority long sidelined, but its failures in fostering self-reliance and fairness demand evolution toward merit-based inclusion. As one of few nations extending such benefits to its majority, Malaysia offers lessons in balancing redress with unity. Reforms under Prime Minister Anwar could bridge these gaps, harnessing diversity for sustained growth. This is Malaysia's story, complex, contested, and capable of renewal. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more in-depth explorations.